At a whopping 8 kilometers deep into the ground, the Benxihu mine was the deepest in the world at the time. Controlled predominantly by the Japanese, coal mining was very crucial for the war effort back in 1942. The available technology at the time, paired with bad decisions and numerous other factors, all came together in a twisted way, leading to the most catastrophic mining disaster the world had ever seen then. Here's the full story of the Honkeiko colliery mining disaster. Mining can easily be one of the most dangerous jobs on the planet due solely to the nature of the job. One of the primary risks in mining is the physical hazards associated with working in underground or open pit environments. Workers face the constant threat of rockfalls, collapses, and landslides, which can result in injuries or fatalities. The challenging underground conditions, including limited lighting, ventilation, and space, further exacerbate these risks. Explosives and blasting operations also introduce significant risks in mining. Improper handling of explosives or faulty blasting techniques can lead to accidents and expose workers to deadly situations. Moreover, the use of heavy machinery and equipment presents additional dangers. The diesel fumes emitted by the machines are super toxic and will almost always lead to respiratory illnesses or worse, black lung or lung cancer. The colliery, called Honkeiko by the Japanese and Benxihu by the Chinese, was located near Benxi Lake in the ore-rich region of eastern Liaoning province. It was part of a coal and iron operation established there in the early 20th century as a joint Chinese-Japanese enterprise that gradually came under the complete control of the Japanese, who invaded the Liaoning area in the 1930s and during the Sino-Japanese War. They forced Chinese laborers, some of whom had been captured from local military organizations, to work in the mines. Conditions in the mines were very deplorable. Food was scarce, and the workers' clothing was in tatters. The flimsy shoes issued by the mine lasted less than 1 week. Diseases such as typhoid and cholera flourished in the camp. The Japanese overseers were harsh disciplinarians and used pick handles to force miners to their shafts. The mine was also surrounded by a guarded perimeter. Sounds an awful lot like slave labor to me. On April 26, 1942, as the miners worked, something was happening that no one had thought about until after it was way too late. Down in the mine in the lower galleries, there was a steady buildup of methane gas, which is highly flammable. It was the last nail in the coffin, as all it would take was a spark from a machine or tool used by the workers to cause a devastating explosion that sent flames bursting through the mine's entrance. The explosion triggered a massive collapse in the mine, with the collapse of galleries, tunnels, and the burial of many miners underground. It was total chaos in a matter of seconds. In the immediate aftermath, guards were stationed at the shaft opening. Miners' relatives from the surrounding area rushed to the scene and were rebuffed by the guards, who soon erected an electric fence to keep unauthorized personnel away from the site. To prevent the spread of the explosion, the authorities in charge cut off ventilation, thereby sealing the terrible fate of surviving miners. It was later deduced that more miners died from suffocation than from the explosion itself. The methane gas explosion resulted from dangerous mining practices and the lack of adequate safety measures in the mine. The fact that the mine was operated by Japan during the war also led to increased pressure to boost coal production, which may have contributed to lax mining practices. It took workers 10 days to remove all the corpses and rubble from the shaft. The dead were buried in a mass grave nearby. Many victims could not be properly identified due to the extent of the burns. The Japanese at first reported the death toll to be 34. Initial newspaper reports were short, as few as 40 words, and downplayed the scale of the disaster, characterizing it as a minor event. Later, the Japanese erected a monument to the dead. This stone gave the number of dead as 1,327. The true number is believed to be 1,549, 34% of the miners working that day. It was the worst disaster in the history of coal mining and the second worst recorded industrial accident. Of this number, 31 fatalities were Japanese, the remaining 1,518 were Chinese. The Japanese continued to operate the mine until the end of World War II in 1945, when they were defeated and forced to withdraw from China. Following the Japanese withdrawal, the Chinese workers took control of the site. With the liberation after the war, the Soviet Union investigated the accident. They found that only some of the workers died directly from the gas and coal dust explosion. Most deaths were from carbon monoxide poisoning produced when the Japanese closed the ventilation and sealed the pit head after the initial explosion. The Benxihu colliery disaster had a profound impact on the local community and the wider mining industry in China. The tragedy was a stark reminder of the dangers faced by miners on a daily basis and the need for increased safety measures in mines. The disaster also highlighted the inadequate safety regulations in place at the time, leading to a public outcry and calls for reform. Years later, the Benxihu colliery disaster resulted in significant changes to the mining industry in China. New safety regulations were introduced, including improved ventilation systems, the installation of dust suppression systems, and the mandatory use of safety lamps. These changes helped to prevent similar disasters in the future and to improve the working conditions for miners. The Benxihu colliery disaster also had a lasting impact on the local community in the Liaoning province. The loss of so many lives in a single disaster was devastating, and many families were left without a breadwinner. The tragedy brought the community together, however, and helped to raise awareness of the importance of workplace safety. In conclusion, the Benxihu colliery disaster of 1942 was a tragedy that claimed the lives of 1,549 miners. The disaster serves as a reminder of the dangers faced by miners and the importance of workplace safety. The reforms that were introduced in the aftermath of the disaster helped to improve the working conditions for miners and to prevent similar tragedies from occurring in the future. As the saying goes, study the past as to not make the same mistake again in the future. Thank you so much for sticking through to the end. Please like, share, and subscribe as it helps out our channel a ton. For similar topics like this where bad luck seems to be a common theme, go check out some of the other videos on the channel.